Welcome into another edition of The Current Report, our weekly roundup of what's happening in the world of digital media. I'm your host, Chris Brooklier. Walmart finalized its $2.3 billion acquisition of Vizio, and for Walmart, this deal is clearly more than just about selling TVs. Walmart can match its shopping transaction data with Vizio's data on who's watching what to make things like ad targeting much more precise. And that's a big deal for the retailer, as almost a third of its operating income in the last quarter, about $2 billion, came through advertising. This potentially sets up Walmart's business of the future. So to break down the deal in more depth, I'm tagging in Joel Cox, co-founder and EVP of Innovation and Strategy at media agency Strategus. All right, pleased to be joined again, back on the show. Joel Cox, how you doing?
Fabulous, Chris. Great to be here with you today.
All right, so Walmart finalized its acquisition of Vizio, obviously a big move, over $2 billion move. Simply, can you tell me and our audience why Walmart did this and why it's a big deal?
Yeah, happy to, because it is a big deal. Despite being a long time coming, we think that why Walmart did this, I can give you two answers. Let me give you the easy answer, and then I'll follow that up with the more thoughtful answer. And the easy answer is because they're trying to keep up with Amazon. Amazon has obviously invested into a very vertically and horizontally integrated tech stack such that they have nearly a closed loop of data, ad impression activation, and measurement within their own ecosystem. Walmart, I believe, is aspiring to and making meaningful progress to doing the same. So that's to say that Walmart is furthering their investment and their commitment into the higher margin relative to retail revenue streams of advertising and monetizing of their data. So by integrating a television, an OEM, a television operating system, it's also meaningfully connecting what otherwise would have been disparate data sources. So for a marketer like myself and my company, that's meaningful.
Yeah, and that tracks really closely actually to what Walmart's president and CEO told Jim Cramer back in February.
We can connect the dots for advertisers. If they advertise with a digital ad, for example, and the customer transacts a week later in a store or club, we can connect that up for them and let them know that the ad really worked. That's the differentiating advantage that we've got. And with this purchase of Vizio, we are intending to be able to expand our opportunity to serve customers and help advertisers have an opportunity to connect even more dots.
So can you take me into what you're telling your clients after this Walmart Vizio deal? Like, how does it change anything business-wise for you guys? Are you saying, hey, let's go plug more money into Walmart's retail media business? Bring me into how that works.
I think anytime you're able to unify and combine disparate, meaningful data sources, as we would in this case potentially with Vizio's ACR data and Walmart's retail data, you potentially get one of these 1 + 1 = 3 scenarios where it becomes very compelling and very meaningful. But I think at the end of the day, those advertisers that want to utilize Walmart data today may predominantly be CPG and other sellers within Walmart's retail and online marketplaces. I can't help but talk about the fact that this offers the opportunity for advertisers and marketers who are not said CPG and product companies selling in Walmart to nevertheless see value and invest in this data. Suffice to say that without going too far down this rabbit hole, retail media obviously poses incredible value right off the bat to, hypothetically speaking, Frito-Lay, right, and what they're selling in a Walmart. But what seemingly is not yet fully realized or appreciated by the greater audience in our eyes is the fact that retail media data is inherently, in our eyes, the next iteration of third-party data, right? We're at this really interesting transition or inflection point where with the ultimate final demise of third-party cookies, and I know that's such a cliche, I'm embarrassed to even mention it on this podcast, but we're watching as third-party data that is inherently cookie-dependent, is a black box of taxonomy. I think we're at a point now where retail media is in a position of scalability, favorability, and performance to replace that. Where I'm going with this whole thing is that I believe that retail media data has immense value beyond just the Fortune 500 retailers selling products on Walmart and in Walmart, but also to smaller advertisers, non-retail, non-CPG advertisers who nevertheless see value in activating this combo of data that is, what Chris is shopping for at Walmart, his shopping behaviors and habits, combined with your viewing and your television watching habits to offer something that is much more thoughtful, that is arguably much more scalable, or at a minimum, much more transparent in its taxonomy. Does that make sense? Or you want to narrow it on a little bit more?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is that this is actually much bigger than Walmart's core business of grocery CPG, right? So advertisers that are working outside of Walmart's usual shopper base, let's say I'm thinking cars, they can use Walmart shopper data to figure out who the next person is that's going to buy a car.
Exactly. The low-hanging fruit is, of course, the CPG that's sold in Walmart's and on Walmart's website, right? However, the example you have defined is exactly right. What we do from a shopping standpoint can be very useful for a number of marketers to determine, are you next likely to be interested in my product or service? And so that's exactly what I'm saying is the opportunity and the scalability of this goes so far beyond CPG. Now, it probably will not be realized in the immediate term, but I can tell you that as a co-founder at Strategus, we have a number of clients that don't sell their products in a Walmart or on a Walmart.com, but that see immense value in utilizing data from Walmart that tells us, a recent example we had was that an advertiser wanted to reach affluent business travelers, like white collar professional business travelers. So we've toyed with utilizing testing around who's buying high-end away and to me luggage, who is buying little travel-sized toothpastes, all of these things, right? That's not what you would imagine right off the bat would be an immediate utilization of retail data, but without doubt has value and is obviously growing in terms of its awareness and its investment.
And you figuring out those little segments with the toothpaste people, I feel like that's like an actual example of when people talk about all the time, this fusion of creativity and science within the new advent of digital marketing. Do you feel like it's obvious the far-reaching consequences for people, let's say marketers, agencies, brands? Do they understand?
I believe that any agency worth their salt is bringing concepts and ideas and new thought to their clients, no doubt about it. And I certainly would place my company in that arena. Nevertheless, at the end of the day, it's incumbent upon a marketer, if they're going to be data-driven, if they're going to leverage connected television, the bad news is you've got to be willing to roll your sleeves up and dig in. We may have talked about this in the past, but connected television is not the field of dreams. You can't just throw some money into a Hulu deal ID and expect that all of your woes are going to be solved. Like, running connected television properly is to run it programmatically, which is to say you've got to have hands-on keyboard darn near 24/7 to continuously be testing, continuously be optimizing, and continuously iterating your campaign based upon the signal that you're getting back. And that's obviously where, going back to the overall topic here, for Walmart to be, I guess, visionary enough to want to keep pace with Amazon and to offer what is getting closer to be a closed loop of data to identify the right audiences to target for the right advertisers, then the data also to measure how they've purchased or converted after ad exposure is incredibly powerful. And then that's obviously where we're headed. That's why CTV, from a marketer standpoint, is a much more favorable medium to traditional linear TV, despite the fact that the device, the household, the audience may be the same. All of the data that we can append to make more strategic decisioning around who sees the ad and what happens after they see that ad is without doubt the most interesting and compelling part to this, to me.
If we zoom out, I think one really interesting part of this whole Walmart discussion is just how much more of an advertising company they're becoming, right? And I remember seeing this article from Reuters, honestly, probably about a year and a half ago, and I reread it right before I came onto this podcast. And in it, the CFO said, in 5 years' time, we're going to be a lot less dependent on our actual stores because of the growth that we're doing in advertising, right? And that's just wild for me to think about, because I'm thinking of like the big scale that Walmart has, right? Over 10,000 stores, 24 countries. It's the biggest retailer in the world. In its latest earnings statement, the company said that about a third of its operating income came from advertising. So what does that say to you that such a huge force in the grocery space is realizing that they're making such high margins within advertising and that it's a gold mine for them?
It tells me that retail and grocery is among the lowest of low margin businesses, and surviving and scaling on single digit margins is hard. Now, granted, single digit margins on many, many, many billions of dollars is still billions of dollars. But it also tells us that data-driven advertising is where the proverbial puck is going. It's meaningful in that it is a massive revenue enhancer. There's a reason that Walmart and Amazon are investing as much as they are into this tech stack. And what it tells us is if you're willing to make those type of bets or investments, the juice is worth the squeeze. And it is to say that programmatic digital advertising coupled with meaningful proprietary data is incredibly lucrative and incredibly meaningful. And it's something that is so nascent today that I think both Amazon and Walmart see the value of this. And I'm sorry I keep mentioning Amazon and Walmart specifically. We know there's a number of other retailers that are also acknowledging the value that their data exists and can be monetized. I mean, we almost refer to this as the sawdust on the wood shop floor. And in some ways, it's surprising that it's taken this long for some of these organizations to realize the value of that sawdust and to begin to aggregate it and monetize it.
And the sawdust is data?
The sawdust is the data. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think that's a great way to cap it off. You're one of my favorite people in the industry, and it's always a joy to talk with you.
Well, Chris, you just made my day. I appreciate the time.
Anytime. Next up, we're capping off this episode with one last thing. An avalanche of ad dollars is projected to hit the programmatic market in coming years. A report from Polaris Market Research finds that the overall space is projected to increase a whopping tenfold from just under $14 billion next year to $117 billion in 2034. One of the main drivers for this growth? Small and medium businesses putting more money into the space. And Asia is the region slated to speed up at the fastest rate, with more consumers spending digitally and the middle class rising. And that's it for this edition of The Current Report. For a deeper dive on all these stories plus more, check out thecurrent.com. And of course, please like and subscribe on YouTube, plus leave us a review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. And if you want to hear more from The Current, listen to The Current Podcast, where we interview some of marketing's biggest leaders about their keystone career moments and where the industry is going next. We'll see you next week.